I'm from Brighton in the United Kingdom in England. I'm here because my grandfather was born in Gombin in 1892. He left Poland in 1913 and went to England. So my mother was born in London. Several of his brothers and sisters stayed in Gombin, and as far as we know, at least his two sisters were brought here to this field on that day in 1942 when the Jews were deported to Chelmno. And I think there were probably also 30 other members of their family who were here. And I've come to commemorate those members of my family. Those people I never knew them. They died before I was born, but they were my mother's cousins, my grandfather's cousins, my grandfather's sister, possibly his mother. That's why I've come.
To 13 lat miałem i mówi: leć do Pelkiego, Żyda, który czapnikiem był, Pelkę. Mieszkał na górze tam gdzie ten cały biuro żydowskie było, to on na górze na piętrze mieszkał. I ja tam poleciałem, bo mówi, Żydów wywożą podobno. I poszłem, żeby odebrać ten towar, co matka mu tam dała na te czapki. Poleciałem tam, to już byli Żydzi wszyscy na tym placu, co naprzeciw poczty, co ten blok stoi. To był czysty plac, bo tam był zbombardowany i tam okopy każda rodzina musiała mieć wykopane. Jak na Rosję Niemcy szli, to już się szykowali tutaj. To jak mieszkaliśmy tam w rynku, to trzeba było tam swój okop wykopać. Tak. No i poleciałem tam, to już nikogo nie było. Byli wszyscy tu naprzeciw poczty, na tym placu, gdzie ten blok. No i tutaj już doszłem i przy tych Żydach, a tam już się Niemcy kręcili po nich, no to już tam wyszłem. No i tą całą drogę, prawda, żydowską z tego placu, naprzeciw tu poczty, gdzie ten blok stoi, tu przyszłem razem z nimi. Z tym, że ja byłem bardziej uprzywilejowany, bo oni szli ulicą, bo Żydom nie było, jak nadmieniłem, chodzić wolno chodnikiem, tylko brukiem, ulicą. No i to chodnikiem szłem koło tego orszaku całego żydowskiego. Kazali jeszcze przyprowadzić wozy drabiniaste takie, bo to po żniwach było chyba już, z ulicy Warszawskiej. Przyprowadzili te wozy i toboły wszystkie na te wozy kładli. No i tu szli i szłem razem właśnie w tym orszaku z nimi. No i tutaj wszystkich zgrupowali, tymi tobołami poukładane i tu siedzieli. My żeśmy mieszkali jakieś stąd w prostej linii z 300-400 metrów może. To wieczorem, jak matka okno otworzyła, to było tu słychać te wszystkie modlitwy.
First main preoccupation was doing something about the Jewish cemetery of Gombin, which had been abandoned. According to a report that we got at that time, it was in danger, threatened by nearby development and by pollution. So our first thought was we must do something to try to save the cemetery of Gombin. And while we were in the process of doing that, and making our first visits to Poland and establishing contacts in Poland, we also decided that it would be fitting to remember the Jews of Gombin in the place in which they were brought to death at the Chelmno extermination camp. So we decided that our project was going to be a double project that was going to include, on the one hand, the preservation of the cemetery, and on the other hand, a memorial for the Gombin Jewish community at Chelmno. So that was our first really important work. We invested a lot of effort. We contacted many people. We raised funding. We came to Poland. There were marvelous things that happened at that time. We are talking the 90s. Ours was one of the first projects of restoration of Jewish cemeteries in Poland. One of the most important things was that we had a decisive collaboration from local people in the town, Polish neighbors, Polish people who were interested in doing something about the cemetery because they had this memory of the Jews, and they thought that it was a project that had to be done. And they had by themselves started to try to organize or to do something about the cemetery, but they had a problem that they couldn't get funding. So for them, we were like a sort of their opportunity. Our interest was also their opportunity to do what they wanted, and then they helped us in a very important way by helping us with the measurements and the surveying of the land, securing and cleaning the title to the land. They also helped us recover matzevot that had been used for construction work in different parts of Gombin. With the contractor, we recovered matzevot that had been used in sidewalks, and with that we were able to bring them back to the cemetery, and they were the basis for the monument that we also built. So the cemetery was a project that took time, but was completed. At the same time, we completed the memorial at Chelmno, and it was a very intense first period of work in which we got to know many people who were descendants of the Jews of Gombin, and in which it was also possible for us to learn a great deal about not only the Jews of Gombin, but also the town, the region, what had been the history of the region under the German occupation. So we were able to really gain a great deal of understanding about what was the background and therefore the reasons that motivated us to do what we were doing.
My name is Robin Schaffert. I live in Washington, D.C. I'm in Gombin because my grandfather, my mother's father, Moshe Meilich Peitel, was born here in 1891. In 1904, his family moved to nearby Yulasheva, and my grandfather was the oldest of 10 children of Itchik Pittel and Toba Danielevich Pittel. In the United States, we pronounced it Peitel. My grandfather was conscripted into the army in World War I and spent most of the year in a prisoner of war camp, and then made his way west to first Havana and then to New York. He married my grandmother, Riva Danielevich Peitel, who was born in nearby Koval. But my grandfather's family, his mother, Toba Danielevich Peitel, and 5 remaining siblings were perished in the Holocaust. We don't know what happened specifically to them, but we know that only one of his nephews and some other distant relatives survived the war. So I'm honored to be here as part of the commemoration of the liquidation of the ghetto here in Gombin, and to learn whatever I can about their lives here, and to remember them. It was an honor yesterday for me to work with a small group to clean the cemetery here, and today to commemorate the burning of the beautiful, beautiful Gombin synagogue, and to remember my family that I didn't have the chance to know, and to commemorate the destruction of this community, and to learn what I can about the history and the people who remain here, and to meet other people whose family, who are also the descendants of the Jews of Gombin. And today I've also had the privilege of meeting and talking with some of the people who live in Gombin today and hearing some of their history. This is my first trip to Poland. My father was born in Vienna, Austria, and left after the Anschluss in 1939 and came to America in 1940. And I know some of what happened to his family. One of my great-grandmothers on his side, like my great-grandmother Pittel, died in the concentration camps. And so I'm here to remember mostly my family from Gombin, but all of my family and all of the Jews who perished in the Holocaust.
Hello, my name is Marlene Rifkin. I live in California, but I grew up in Glasgow, Scotland. I'm here because, actually, this is my second visit to Gombin. I was here last year for the first time. So all my life I heard about Gombin from my mother, although she only lived here for 5 years. So last year when the opportunity arose to join the Gombin Historical Society on their trip here, I was happy to do so. Part of that trip was very, very special for me because a few years earlier, a lady from Gombin had discovered these prayer books in her house, and she had saved them and she wanted to give them back to the family. And as it turned out, that was my family. And I found out about this by accident, but on that trip I was able to meet with her and thank her for saving the books, which she gave back to the family. On this trip, this year, this is a special trip because it's commemorating the history of the Jews in Gombin and what happened to them. And I think this is the first time that that's happened here in this town. So it is a very special time, and it's also special for me because my daughter is accompanying me on this trip. And I hope that you will hear from her soon.
My name is Rachel Rifkin, and I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I came on this trip to Poland because my mom has gotten super into genealogy, and she was very excited to come on this trip, and she asked me to come with her. And I thought it would be a good chance to spend time with her and learn more about our Polish heritage, of which I know very little. I was named after my mom's mom, and so it's cool to come to this town to see where she was from. It's cool to come to Gombin, where she's from, and just to see it in real life and absorb the history by being here. You know, I'm really here to support my mom, and I think that it means a lot for her that I'm here, and so that's what means a lot to me.
My name is Leon Zamos. I come now from San Diego, where I live. Originally, I was born in Argentina. I lived in Israel many years, also in Britain, where I studied, and late in the last period of my life in the United States, in San Diego. Why I'm here is a complicated question. I like to say that I'm here because I love my parents and because I honor their memory. It gives you probably my most personal motive for doing the things that we are doing.
My name is Edie Simon Israel. I'm American, but I live mostly in London and part-time in Stowe, Vermont in the US. I'm here because I'm the daughter of a Gombiner. I'm the daughter of Sal Simon, who was born Shlama Zimelinsky in Gombin in 1924. And that's about all I know. I know that he went to a work camp, and I know that from the work camp he was sent to a concentration camp. I don't yet know which one. My father never spoke of his experience during the war or right after the war, and I know very, very little. And now at my stage of life, I feel like I want to learn more. I've been a part of the Gombiner Society, and when this trip came up and I read about it in an email, I said I needed to go on this trip. It was time for me to come to Gombin and see a part of my history for myself. And that's why I'm here.
I'm Bernard Geyer. Most people call me Bernie. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States. I've been active now in the Gombin Society and coming to Poland for 20 years. My family is from Gombin, both my mother and my father. My brother was born and died in Gombin, and my sister was born in Gombin. So Gombin is part of our family story. I've heard about it since I was a small child. I'm on this particular trip because it's taking place at a moment when there seems to be a new enthusiasm and momentum for American Gombiners to reconnect with Gombin, to involve their children and grandchildren, what we call the third generation, to become part of the multicultural interpretation of how to think about Poland right now. So this is very attractive. And I didn't know anything about Gostynin when I came, but I'm interested in the comparison between Gostynin and Gombin. In Gombin, we have now this long history of a Landsmannschaft organization all over the world, Israel, the United States, South America, Britain, but very little involvement directly in the community. And in Gostynin, they have just the opposite. They have no Landsmannschaft, but they have a very strong civil society focus for the development of these ideas on multicultural society in Poland. So I think we have something to learn from each other. I didn't realize that before I came, but I think that we can learn from them in Gombin. They can help us develop this kind of civil society. They can learn from us because these people who come from abroad, from Gostynin, they should be better organized and be supportive to the civil society people in the town.
My name is Hannah Elka. It's the official name. Elka is after my grandmother. She was from Gostynin. And my father was born here. Maybe she was born here. I am from Israel. It was my dream for a long time to see my land of my father, who was born in Gostynin, and he didn't want to come back. When I was almost 40 years, I asked him, please give me a present to my birthday. Come with me to your town. He says, okay, but 2 months before my birthday, he died. So now I had an opportunity to come and see myself without him, and it's really, really, how you say, I'm thrilling, I'm anxious, and it's a beautiful town. My father told me about the forest here. He loved very much the forest. And I saw it now over the town and with your camera. It's very nice. Well, it's not only my father, it's the whole family that is born here. Many sister and brother he had. And grandmothers and uncles and so on. One of them was a very famous actor in Gostynin. So I wanted to see something. Of course, now we don't have any signs of the Jewish places, but today I had a very fascinating experience that I went to see the place where was the house of my father.
My name is Jessie Klein. I live in Acton, Massachusetts in the United States. I came to Gostynin because my grandfather, Julius Bagno, left here in 1910 to come to America. And I knew him, and growing up I heard lots of stories about Gostynin. He used to tell stories about how he and his cousins and siblings, he had 11 sisters and brothers, he used to talk about the things that they would do in Gostynin. And then as I got older and started doing family history and learned more about my family, their last name was Bagno, I got more and more interested. And honestly, I never thought I would be in Poland, but when the opportunity arose to come as part of the Gombin Gostynin group, I took advantage of it, and I came to see the town where my grandfather had come from, to learn about the culture and to visit Poland. And it's been really very thrilling for me to walk around the town where my grandfather grew up and see other towns such as Gombin and Plots, which turns out I also had family in.
My name is Neta Gur Sharon. I live in Israel in a city called Ra'anana. I am the grandchild of Celina Charna Motil, who came to Israel in 1934 from Gostynin.
My name is Noam Sharon. I am Neta is my sister. I live also in Israel, in a town called Givat Ada, and we are here again in Gostynin.
So about a year ago, my son had to do an assignment for school about his origins, and he decided to explore my father's origins, or our grandmother origins, and this is the family side that comes from Gostynin. Since he did this assignment, I helped him, and then I realized that I can Google Gostynin, and I started seeing pictures of the place and the town, and it triggered my curiosity to actually come and see where the family comes from. So that led us to our first visit in Gostynin about a year ago.
As preparation for this trip, I also wanted to started digging into the family history and wanted to try and assemble the full family tree. And one of the places one of the places I looked inside was the book, the Izkor book of Gostynin, where there are a lot of details, and in it also one can see that one of the biggest, if not the biggest family in Gostynin was the Motil family, which is the maiden name of our grandmother. And I researched and I tried to piece together the tree, but it's an ongoing mission. It's not complete yet.
My name is Susan Swigaft. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area.
My name is Blanche Swigaft Meslin, and I'm from Hartford, Connecticut.
I'm here because I have become the de facto family historian and have been working on family history for about 40 years. Our great-grandfather, Simon Swigaft, was born in Gostynin in 1845, and he died in the early 20th century, and his son died, our grandfather, in the early 20th century. So even our father knew nothing about Gostynin and probably didn't know his grandfather was born here. So it's always been a mission of mine to understand more about our family. And I was here 3 years ago, was for my first trip, but that was with a guide who told us some of the history, but we had no opportunity to meet people in the community, and there was no multicultural
Gostynin placards talking about the history of the town and especially the history of the Jews in Gostynin. So it's very exciting both to be back here with this group and see those multicultural tourism signs, as well as to meet other people on this trip who are descendants of Jews from Gostynin.
Yes, and I think we have another relative, Shlomo, to tell us about that.
Yeah, so since I was here in 2016, we have, through our genealogy research, we've discovered two more Zweigaf branches in Israel, and one of them is a descendant of Shlomo Zweigaf, clearly a relative of ours. He was born in Gostynin in 1903 and went to Palestine in the 20s or 30s, where he became very active with the emigres of Gostynin in Palestine. So we have been in touch with those Israeli relatives now in the last couple of years, and they will be very excited to see what we've learned about Gostynin in this area, I'm sure.
Yes, we've been very touched and moved by the welcome from the people of Gostynin, and we hope to come back soon.
My name is Moshe Zaideman. I'm from Haifa, for Israel. Not Haifa, but the suburb. It's called Kiryat Motzkin. I want to be here many years ago, but surprisingly I got a mail from somebody that organized this tour to Gostynin. I didn't hesitate a moment, so I'm here. All my family are here buried in the ground somewhere and in Poland, and we grew with my sister without grandfathers, without grandmothers, without family, so we don't know what the other generation look like, and we grew in very small families. So everybody, I think, wants to see his background and to hear about the background. And this was a great opportunity for us to come and to visit here. This is our first time to visit Gostynin.
I'm now with my family, with my husband. His family, his father was born in Gostynin. It is very important to our family to see what happened to all the families here. Also, my family is from Poland, and it is very important that our children and the new generation may know about what happened in the past with all the families, all the Jewish families. So it's an honor to be here and to respect the Jewish families.
Originally, I was born in Israel, in Tel Aviv, but I moved to live in the United States many years ago, and right now we're living in Los Angeles. We've been actually here 5 years ago, and unfortunately, nobody guided us here in the city, so we didn't see anything. But when we heard again through Leon that they are organizing a trip over here, obviously, I was very excited to join the group, and some members of the family who are here also were eager to come here and trace the roots, basically, and that's why we're here.
I'm Eliana.
Dan.
Gabriella.
Eli.
Ariella. Michal.
Litov Lifshitz.
I'm extremely grateful for the town and for the people who put this together, this program together. We were here 5 years ago, and there was really nothing to commemorate the history of the Jews in this town. And to be back here 5 years almost to the day, and to be able to say Kaddish for my great grandfather is really amazing experience, and to share that with my family. And we're just grateful, really.
I heard about the good rabbi of Gostynin, but when I actually tried to do research, I didn't find much, and I actually thought that they might have been exaggerating. So when I heard there was an opportunity to actually find out whether or not they really were being honest about how important he was, I'm really just excited to be here to learn.
I just want to add that we are the 5th, 6th, and 7th generations of the Rabbi of Gostynin.
And I'm here to support my husband, my own family. I lived in Breslau, which was now is Wrocław, and most of those were killed. So I think this is a history, in wiping out the history of the Jews, we're wiping out a good part of Poland. So being in Gostynin, it makes me feel that we are reviving the memory of all of the Jews, really. And I'm very grateful to the people in Gostynin and those who led the trip for this experience.
I'm excited to be here because of personal reasons, being that my great-great-grandfather, the Rebbe from Gostynin, was here, but I'm also grateful to be here to see and be a witness to what was life in Gostynin, the history behind it, how the people lived, the impact on this community, the loss of the Jews. And I'm incredibly grateful to Pieter and Elvira for their work in creating this monument.
I'm also extremely grateful to be here. I think that history is important, just to remember everything that happened. And for me, it's really interesting because, we don't live in Poland anymore. My generation is kind of very distanced from this place and the time period, and it's really fascinating to return to where my ancestors used to live.
I would like to share with you a letter. By the way, it was written in August 12, 1943. My very dear ones, I would like you to know how my family and I perished. On the 9th of March 1942, I was torn out of my home and sent off to this labor camp together with other Gostynin Jews. More than half were tormented to death during the hard work. Many were shot for taking a few potatoes or for other such crimes. On the night between 16th and 17th April, my dear wife Minya and my 4-year-old Ilana Naomi It's hard. And my mother-in-law, Salia Matil, together with the entire Jewish population of Gostynin, were sent to their death. We know only that they were taken first to Kransiewicz, and from there we assume they were driven to Chlemno to their slaughter. I never heard from them again. My dear little children, Emmanuel and Shulamit, escaped from Gostynin and managed to arrive to David and Rivka in Warsaw. My father-in-law, Nute Motil, on which my name is Neta Motil, was in Warsaw as well. He died 4th November 1941. By the end of July 1942, the tragedy began in Warsaw. On 6 August 1942, Rivka was captured and sent to her death. David was seized on 19th January 1943. However, he managed to escape and after 3 days returned to the ghetto in Warsaw. Then, hoping to save my children, he gave them to a Polish family and they lived with them until July 1943. In March 1943, David left the ghetto and lived in several hiding places. His last letter was from May. In it, he describes to me in detail our brothers' heroic battle in the Warsaw ghetto. The ghetto fell on Passover 1943. David also did not survive. On 14 July 1943, I suddenly received news from my children. They were in a hotel in Warsaw together with some foreigners, and they were hoping to leave soon for Eretz Israel. With them were also Binem Matil with his wife and Tasha Bresler, if anyone recognized the name. On 17 July, I received the last postcard from my dear daughter Shulamit. It was from Frankfurt, and she wrote that she will be going to Berlin. She was separated from her brother, my son. She wrote that Emmanuel will probably go with the next transport to Eretz Israel. Since then, I had no news from them. Who knows whether they are alive? I don't know if in Warsaw you will visit the hotel where they called out all the children that were hiding in Warsaw after the liquidation of the ghetto. They called to all the children, Jewish children, to come to this hotel so they can go to Eretz Israel, to Palestine. And obviously they did not arrive to Palestine. If they ever read these words, I would like them to know that until my last moment, I have lived only for them. Here in camp, from 687 men, we remained only 60. Our fate is sealed. Tomorrow morning, the Gestapo people will come to lead us to our death. We have decided, however, not to sell our lives cheap. We shall burn everything and commit suicide. Earth, do not cover our blood. So that is the letter, and none of the people described in this letter survived, including the one who wrote it, obviously. And that's our only memory.